In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at the Turkish Get Up for beginners. We're going to talk about some prerequisites, how to perform it, and then we'll look at some other options and easier options to be able to help you complete it more effectively, so then you can progress on to obviously more harder versions. If you want to build your core strength and stability, please do click the link below, go through to my How to Build Core Strength and Stability 12-week online program, which is 4 exercises a week for 12 weeks, naturally progresses, and then at the end of the 12 weeks, the intermediate and advanced workouts open up, and then you can take your core strength and stability on to more intermediate and advanced levels. So let's talk about some prerequisites. What is it we need before we go into a Turkish Get Up? Well, the first thing we need is adequate hip extension. So a part of the Turkish Get Up is coming from this position to this position. Now this requires the hip to be extended, not flexed, but extended. For the very simple reason, we need to be able to get our knee underneath our body like so. So number one prerequisite is adequate hip extension, or the ability to extend the hip. That's not only range of movement, but also strength of the glute muscles to hold it up. Number two is hip and shoulder stability. Shoulder stability, if we start there, because what we need to be able to do during the Turkish Get Up with a weight, now you don't have to use a weight to start with anyway, is here, or going from lying down up to here. So we go from here to here. Now having a stable shoulder will keep it vertical. If it's unstable, it will be wobbling all over the place. So that's one part of shoulder stability. So we need adequate shoulder stability to begin with. What we then have is hip and shoulder stability, which is from the phase before. We need to be able to not be all over the place when we're in this position, because we're eventually going to be coming up onto one foot and one hand, which is essentially in a straight line. So we're going to kind of be on a tightrope from our wrist to our ankle. So we need to be able to hold that position again, not sort of fall all over the place. And then obviously, as I mentioned, we need to bring it into here. So not only are we strong here, we are also stable, because again, that's moving. So I'm going from this slightly extended shoulder here to where it would effectively be out to my side. So we need to be able to have that. So that's hip and shoulder stability, not only in that sort of closed loop position, but also in the open position where it could be moving around up here. Finally, number three is thoracic rotation or spinal rotation. So again, what we need to be able to do when we get into this position is have vertical shoulders, or almost vertical shoulders. What we don't want is shoulders to be, because we can't rotate in this position, and then overloading the arms. That's what we want to try and avoid. So we need to be able to rotate the shoulder all the way up. So they're in that position. Because if we can't do that, we're going to put excessive stress on the anterior portions of the shoulder, which is then going to create tightness, muscle imbalance, and then it's going to cause that much of a problem. So those are essentially the 3/4 things that we need to be able, or as a prerequisite, to be able to do the Turkish Get Up. Now, obviously, if we want to start the Turkish Get Up, we can, but we need to be working on these things, so we don't just, as we're going to talk about, we don't just go from the lying down position to the standing position. We are working on doing that and getting better at it, which is what I'll talk about in the next part of the tutorial. Now we're going to go through the tutorial as a whole, and in some respects talk about the full movement done in the best way. What we're then going to do in the next section is look at how we can break that down, make it a little bit easier so you can start doing it and start getting these concepts. But then hopefully the idea is to bring it back into what I'm just about to show you. So what we do is we come down into this position. So this essentially is our start position. You can start in this position, which is what some people do, and then they sort of roll out and press up. But essentially we've got the arm at say 45 degrees. We've got the hip open here, so the feet are apart, or the foot and the knee are apart. Because what we need to be able to do is, as we push, we're not just rolling into this sort of position. What we're doing is we're using this hip and this foot push us over. So it's not just a roll where we use momentum. We're actually using the foot and the hip to push us over. What we then do as we start getting that push and that roll is come up onto the elbow. So we go here and then we push. So I'm pushing the elbow into the floor to get me up, like so. Obviously using this as well, using the foot, so I'm here. Again, this arm is staying vertical. I can look up at the weight. What I then do is come up onto the hand. So I'm now in this position. Now this is where my hip extension comes in, because what I need to now do is extend up. Now I need to take this straight leg and put the knee in between my hand and my foot. So I come through and come to there. Now if you need to look, you can. Otherwise, you can then adjust your feet or foot, come up to this standing position, and then stand tall. And that is essentially the Turkish Get Up, where we get up, and then we do the reverse to go back down. So what happens there, from here, again, arms vertical, we step down, we then got foot, knee, hand in a straight line, just the same as when we came up. We then go leg through, back down to the elbow, back down, roll over if you need to. So that is the Turkish Get Up. There are more variations. We'll talk about some of that when we sort of move into the next section, but essentially if we just use that as our template for now, because there are other versions out there and there's nothing really wrong with other versions than this version, and this version is no better or worse than others. They're all kind of the same. The ultimate goal is to get you from the lying down position into the standing position ultimately, but there are advantages over this because of what's required from this type of get up with regards to what I talked about: shoulder stability, hip strength, a thoracic rotation, so on and so forth. So what we'll do now is we'll start looking at some other options and easier options to get you from here, or to at least get you started from down there to up here. So we'll start down on the floor. We're not going to use any weight. We're just going to come down onto the floor. So again, we don't really have to have our arm up here. All we're going to do is go from here and just get ourselves up into this position. So again, it's just no weight, but we're just rolling ourselves up. If you find the rolling a problem, you can just start very simply. You could even have a weight in your hand here and just get used to that rolling and come back down. Because what you're then starting to build is that shoulder stability in this sort of closed shoulder position, and then this open shoulder position. So you can see the armpit now, and now you can't see the armpit because it's closed. So that's just a nice little starter. Again, learning to push that hip over. So you're learning that roll, not the sit-up. That's what we want to try and avoid. We want to start with that roll. So that in some respects is the first part. There's no other way than just getting up onto the elbow. So it's just getting up, elbow to hand. So we're in this position. Again, you may want to be working on shoulder mobility to be able to get you up and stay vertical once we're in this position. Now, to be able to get us from this position into that sort of on one knee in between the hand and the foot, there is another way. What you can do is start on one hand without any weight, and what you can also do is keep contact with the floor with this leg here and just slide it underneath yourself. So you haven't got to have the hip extension for this, because all we're going to do is just come into this position like so. Then we're up, and then we stand. So you've got that. What you can also do is come down, slide that back through. Then you can start, once you're starting to get that concept and know where the knee needs to go, then you can start hip extending and learning to get that hip up, build the strength in the glute to keep you up. Then here, or keep the foot down and slide it in, because when that foot and leg is on the floor, it's going to be a little bit easier. And then obviously it's then just adjusting the feet from here, or once you're in this position here, just adjusting the feet accordingly and stepping up. Again, starting without any weight and then building the weight in. So that is how you can start to build those pieces into that sort of harder weighted Turkish Get Up. The other option you've got when you get to this position, because this is essentially the hardest bit, 2 hands on the floor and in. So again, you can get this leg off the floor, 2 hands, get the whole leg up and then up. So you've got a variety of different options, sliding the leg, keeping just the foot down, getting both hands down and picking the whole leg up. So there's lots of different options there for you to be able to start building that exercise with the idea of doing it as I did it in the previous section, which is weighted, rolling, coming up, fully extending of the hip. That's where you want to get to, but you need to know where to start. And you need to know where your best position is to start. And any of that, or any that we've just talked about, could be that. So you may be stronger in certain elements than others. So you may need to regress certain parts and progress other parts. There's nothing wrong with just doing each phase as an isolated exercise to build it up, but you need to integrate it back in together by doing a full Turkish Get Up. If you've liked this tutorial, please do hit the like button below and the thanks button below. If you want to watch more of these videos, please do hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. You'll be notified when my next one's released. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below and I'll get them answered as quickly as possible.